You're gonna just have to eat your food on the pod.
Already done.
This is crazy.
You gotta
What's up?
munch on those.
The
on
Mint
that food.
Mobile sponsorship, when we're not sponsored by them, was crazy.
Was it a
Well,
sponsorship? Marquise just denied it.
Yeah, we're never getting sponsored now.
We're getting sponsored now. Ryan Reynolds called us up. He's like, I really like what you guys are doing on the podcast. I figured I'd give you a Mint Mobile sponsorship.
But it's me or him.
Well, we got it's either us or it's either the sponsorship or we cut Marquise from the show.
What do we pick?
Yeah, what sponsorships are we getting?
Well, man. Well, the first thing is we gotta ask Ryan Reynolds how much he's gonna pay us, and then we would decide whether or not to cut Marquise.
Could you get Marquise on a set of... Nope, never mind. He couldn't even do that. He'd be pissed off. He'd be too pissed off that he'd be there.
How many trains did you guys actually spot in this movie? Because I feel like it was only 2.
No, there was that wallpaper of a bunch of trains.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So there was train spotting in Trainspotting.
Thank God. I was about to, turn off.
This is episode 18 of I Finally Saw, where today I finally saw Trainspotting. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our second episode of the year. This is a little bit of a smaller, more calming episode, hopefully, than last week. Or last time. Today I'm joined by Dayton.
Hello.
And Andromeda, who is trying to sneak her food while we're recording.
Yeah, I didn't realize we started recording so soon.
Well, the grind never stops. Yes, today we are talking about the Ewen McGregor 1996 classic, Trainspotting. Before I read, I guess I'll go ahead and read a bit of the typical summary that I usually do, that I have copy and pasted from Wikipedia, because I am too lazy to write anything myself. But before I get into that, I just want to say that if you enjoy what we're doing on the podcast, if you'd like to support us and help us grow and reach even more people, then if you would be so kind as to leave a comment or to subscribe and like the video and share it, then that would be very much appreciated. But yes, Trainspotting. Trainspotting follows heroin addict Mark Renton as he stumbles through bad ideas and sobriety with his unreliable friends, Sick Boy, Begbie, and Spud, and Tommy. He also has an underage girlfriend, Diane, along for the ride, and after cleaning up and moving from Edinburgh to London, Mark finds he can't escape the life he left behind when Begbie shows up at his front door on the lam, and a scheming Sick Boy follows.
What exactly attracts you to the leisure industry? I don't want pleasure. Like my pleasure and other people's leisure. He's always been lacking in morals.
So, I have a question for everybody, and it's funny because as of the time of recording this, it's only been 2 weeks since we actually finalized the entire schedule for every movie we're going to talk about this year in 2026. Every main episode, we've already figured out when those are coming out and what those movies are. So and that was only that conversation was maybe 2 weeks ago. So I have a question for everybody, because I think it's funny that I've already forgotten. Does anyone remember why we picked this movie?
I also forgot. I was hoping you remembered. I was going to talk about it on the podcast.
I was trying to rack my brain. I'm why did we I'm not even commenting anything about the quality of this movie. I was was there a reason? Who requested this?
This is what happens when we don't record our meetings.
We got to start doing that for posterity. I got to preface this by saying I don't think there's no anniversary coming up. I don't think any big birthdays. I don't think anything. Somebody put this movie on the list, and I do not remember why.
This got picked over the Power Rangers movie.
Oh man, I don't know about this specifically.
Why? Well, maybe is it coming out? Did it release January, and that's why we added it.
I remember why we're talking about this movie, because it's turning 30 years old. I gotta pull back the curtain a little bit where it's actually. But yes, Trainspotting. I forgot. That's the yes. It's turning 30 years old. It has been 30 years since Danny Boyle directed this movie, and released it. So yeah, massive anniversary. 30 years is I think sort of the. To me, it's I think the point when it finally starts to cement. Like, is this a movie that has really, really lasted? I think 10 years and 20 years, not that those aren't significant anniversaries, but there's always an element of like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it's been that long. 30 years to me is the one where it's just like, wow. And we're still kind of having this conversation. And yeah, I mean, Danny Boyle is still making movies. He just did 28 years later. And he's got a really interesting filmography, obviously, like all the other 28 movies, Slumdog Millionaire, Sunshine, which I'm not as familiar with all of those, but I've certainly heard those come up in conversation. And yeah, so I mean, speaking about familiarity, turning it over to Andromeda, I mean, how familiar were you with this movie prior to today?
I wasn't really familiar. Like, I couldn't even tell you what the movie was about, but I've heard it being so highly regarded. Like, on Letterboxd, I feel like I've made it pretty well known that I like going through like the top 250 lists, and this one is on the like top 250 IMDb list, and it's also on the top like 100 or 1001 movies to watch before you die. And I think that was all I knew about the movie, but I knew if it makes it on a list like that, it has to be pretty special. Like, there's something in it that really resonates with people. So I didn't know anything about it, but I was excited to just, jump in and watch it.
And then, I mean, Dayton, what about you?
I'm like the same boat with Andromeda. I only knew it by name. I never knew anything about it. I didn't know who was in it. I didn't know who made it. I knew nothing. I've only heard people talk about Trainspotting. So I was kind of intrigued to see what it was about, because that title really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you anything about the movie.
Yeah, I guess it's not an immediately. It's not a title like Psycho, where you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. Not that it's a bad title, but yeah, it's definitely it pokes intrigue in a different sort of way, because you're just like, I wonder what that means. I was not at all familiar with this movie. In fact, I think I had this, even though I knew it was an anniversary for this movie, I think I had forgotten the release date in the preparation for, like, initially watching this movie. And for some reason, I think before I looked it up to start watching it, I thought it was a Hitchcock movie. Funny enough to bring up Psycho. Because, like if you detach yourself from what the movie is, Trainspotting to me almost sounds like a Hitchcock title. I don't know if I'm completely off base by saying something like that.
I mean, there's strangers on a train.
Well, there you go. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, Ewen McGregor. And I was like, which was like a whole other conversation, because I was like, I like Ewen McGregor. But then I thought about it, and I was like, I actually think the only movies I have seen Ewen in prior to Trainspotting are the prequels. Because I didn't watch Dr. Sleep. I watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I know he was in that. He was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Have I seen anything else with Ewen McGregor in it? I haven't seen Birds of Prey.
So
he's a bad guy in Birds of Prey. I still haven't seen that.
He did some voice acting stuff, didn't he, for animated stuff?
Probably. He was in Del Toro's Pinocchio.
Who did he play in that? Did he play Geppetto?
No, Cricket.
Oh! Yeah. I remember that. I really liked him in that. Yeah, so I didn't know what to expect other than that this movie was going to be really British. Or Scottish, I guess, as I found out.
Yeah.
Maybe those are overlapping terms. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm not familiar. Maybe we should we have reached out? Do we know any British people we should have reached out to have on the show?
British people?
I
don't think so.
Wait, I think my 7th grade teacher was British. What if I called him right now? I haven't spoken to him in like 10 years or longer. Like, I think there was
we
like
should
one time.
ask him,
There was like one time I reconnected with him very briefly, like years after I was out of his class, and then after that I don't think I've spoken to him in over like 10 years. So I should call him right now and be like, "You ever seen Trainspotting, mate?"
My mom lived in like England for a few years. She's the greatest person ever. She lived in London.
So we don't know a lot of British people, so perhaps we're speaking over them. I don't mean to supplant my voice over a different culture. But yeah, we were not at all really familiar with this movie. And when I saw the poster, I think I was sort of refamiliarized with it. It was like, oh, I think I've heard of this. I don't know how to explain it. And I'll make this point, and then I guess we'll probably start transitioning into overall thoughts. But I saw the poster, and I started watching literally like within the first 30 seconds of the movie, and I instantly kind of clocked that this movie is in a genre that I like to call something to the effect of like, I saw this when I was 22 and it changed my life. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like this. It's like Trainspotting. It's like Donnie Darko. It's like Lady Bird. There's just a specific
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. I think that's a good one. I don't know what it is. Probably like the Evil Dead movies are in that category. It's just like I saw this. I saw this when I was like 21, 22, and it changed my brain chemistry. And I could see this being that movie for a lot of people. But yeah, I watched this with Dayton in preparation, and I said that this felt like Scottish Breathless to me. Is maybe how I would describe it. I guess now speaking more broadly, I'll throw it over to Andromeda. I know I've done this in the past, but we're experimenting new things. We'd read the plot synopsis, but like what? Let's start from the top. What happens in this movie, and how do you feel about it?
I guess in broad strokes, what happens in this movie is we're with four main characters. We're with Renton, Spud, Sick Boy, Begbie, and then I guess there's like Tommy and Diane, but they're not as important. So we still have our four main cast. They're all like addicts. They all do heroin. They're all living, I think, like in an apartment together. And I mean, the most of the movie, they're kind of just dealing with that, I guess, is really the best way to put it. And then as we go on through this story, Renton specifically has to go like cold turkey. He almost dies doing heroin. He was then like in care of his parents, where they made him go cold turkey. He was hallucinating, seeing things, and I think it's kind of this very, I guess, like realistic way of depicting addicts, because there are like a lot of really gross scenes. There's a scene where I think it was Renton, and he goes into the bathroom, and it's like this,
the worst toilet in Scotland,
the most disgusting bathroom you've ever seen. He uses the toilet, even though it's like, literally covered in, I couldn't even tell you what it is covered in. But then after he uses it, he sticks his arm in it, and like the whole point of the scene is to show you to what lengths these people are going to go through to get their hit, to get their fix. And that's kind of what this entire movie, I feel like, is grappling with, is just life, doing drugs, and then life after, because they do have, at least Renton has a life after, and he kind of works to be sober throughout the movie.
And he gets a girlfriend.
Well, I don't know.
That whole sequence was something. I mean, we'll get to that. Yeah, I mean, this movie is gross. And
Yeah.
I made the mistake of making food right beforehand, and I was like, I was trying to eat while we were watching this movie, and I was like, man,
Right in front of my salad?
and I had to just kind of stomach it.
There's like a scene where, like the scene where Ewen McGregor almost dies from the heroin. It's like a real, like they do a real close up of it. It's like really freaky. There's
the way
also
you, like,
the
see it
baby
draining,
corpse,
Yeah, someone's baby dies.
like the baby that dies in the apartment, and there's a long shot of the corpse, and it's really a good prop, but it terrifies the crap out of me.
And
I
he
thought that was just.
Especially 'cause
Oh my gosh! That hallucination really freaked me out.
even in horror movies, they don't ever show like a dead baby. I think because it's very taboo to have like a dead child, So I think seeing that definitely adds to the realness of the movie.
It also just adds to the depthness of their addiction. Just that
Yeah, exactly.
they can't feel the proper emotions that they should be.
What I learned about the title of this movie is that it's very misleading because when you think of Trainspotting, you're thinking of just like literally watching trains pass by. But Trainspotting is a common term amongst addicts. I don't know if it's like specifically a UK Scottish thing because I'd never heard of it, but Trainspotting is a term used for when like addicts usually stick like their needles in the same places. So like the places that are left are the like train spots. So like if you didn't know that right coming in, it would probably be a little bit jarring for you to then watch this story about addicts, because even the poster for this movie to me kind of looks like a rom-com. Like it very much looks the same to like She's All That, So that's kind of what I was expecting when I was coming into it. But then to be a little bit blindsided by this story about like addiction was really hard, because in my life I have a lot of family that is recovering, so that's kind of hard for me. But I think that I really like that this story specifically has been like so well regarded by people, because I think it's important for people to tell. Like even going off the earlier example of the baby, like the corpse of the baby specifically, and them not reacting in the right way, that was really, insane, I feel like is the better word for it, because they saw the baby and the mother, Allison, like she was the one that reacted normally because she was in distress, but everyone else was like, I need to take a hit, like I need to
but she eventually still ended up going like, I need to take a hit.
Yeah.
Which eventually, even though she screamed, she still really relied on the drug to keep her going. Mm-hmm. Her comfort was she immediately tried to go for the fastest dopamine hit she could get.
Right. That's like the thing with addicts though, is just their mentality of like, no matter what they go through, like I don't want to feel this pain. I just need to find anything to not feel it.
And I don't think any of these depraved scenes would have worked as well if it wasn't for the beginning showing why people do drugs. That it's enjoyable. Like Ewen McGregor points it out. Like we're not idiots. We're doing it because we enjoy it. We're not doing it because it's miserable. It's because of our miserable lives that causes it. It's like we like how it feels. And if they didn't show that, people would just went like, it would have been not fully exploring drug addiction. But another thing this movie does is it doesn't just explore drug addiction. It kind of just, every character, even outside of the main characters who are drug addicts, even whenever people are considered sober, they all are addicted to something. They either have a cigarette in their mouth, they're either drinking alcohol, or they're eating a bunch of food. That is always, even though the other characters are considered like the healthy members of society, they still have something they're attached to physically, and I really liked how that was shown.
Mhm.
Like the bingo scene, it was comical how much alcohol was on that table.
Yeah, because he has a line about that earlier in the movie where, and I don't remember the eloquence with which he states it, but he's talking about how, like, in a much more socially acceptable fashion, my mother is also an addict. You know,
Pills, I think is what it was.
yeah, she takes, I think, pain medication.
But I like that it's actually supported by the visuals and not just stated.
What's interesting comparing this, and I mean, obviously, the connection I'm making is a very loose one, but and I haven't seen this other movie, but I still feel like making this comparison where it's interesting. To me, the immediate movie that comes to mind to liken this movie to is something like Requiem for a Dream, which is also, I'm pretty sure, a movie about young people in lower economic standing and their sort of struggles with Dayton getting really close to the camera.
Oh, I'm getting too old.
It's like Edna Mode. She's like, "Who are you?"
Who is this? What do you want?
No, Requiem for a Dream is also a movie about sort of impoverished characters trying to rise above but still succumbing to addiction. But everything people have ever told me about that movie is that it's this very bleak portrayal of it. And that's not to say that this movie isn't bleak in certain fashion. There are incredibly disheartening and discomforting scenes. But I mean, I think this movie is very much like a comedy, and I don't think it's doing that at the expense of downplaying these characters' addictions and these horrible things that they do and these horrible things that they go through. I think it's almost in service. I think it's almost like pointing out it is kind of hilarious and insane and kind of grimly funny, both the lengths that these characters go to, but also the other addictions that other people there's that wonderful little moment that I think of is when his parents, when Mark, what's his name, Mark, his parents pick him up from the hospital after his overdose, and they're so upset. You can see it on their faces. They're so upset that he's done this to them, and they're driving away in the car, and they're all sitting in the back seat, and then almost without even thinking about it, Mark's mom pulls out a pack of cigarettes and gives one to her husband and almost gives one to Mark, and then is oh. And it's just it's just yeah, I mean everybody has their own sort of vices. I guess it's true that some are perhaps more immediately life-threatening than others, but it's just it also just sort of goes to show for some people it is kind of almost hereditary. It comes from somewhere, you know.
I think the comedy really adds to just the scenes of thrill for the main characters. The scene where they're running away from, they're stealing and they're running away from cops. It's if it isn't so comedic, I feel like that would have been portrayed as very dramatic. Whenever it makes it to where you understand where they're kind of having fun at this, but it's also just as somebody who's seeing how they're destroying themselves with those bleak scenes, you know that this is ultimately a very bad thing that they're doing, but you can see the reasons why they still stick with it.
Well, okay, so then the other thing, the thing that is perhaps the most sort of surprising, and is the one thing about this movie that I'm just hung up about because I don't know necessarily how it relates to anything else, is when Ewen McGregor's character has a relationship with the high schooler. That's the one thing about this movie that I'm and I don't know, maybe they're trying to make a point with that.
It might be a kill the cat situation. They might want to, they're he's not the worst guy. He wouldn't sleep with a high schooler again.
What a stand-up guy this guy is, you know? He doesn't want to groom minors. I mean, some guys won't do that.
Yeah, scary how many guys will. But You know, I don't know what it is. I think it's so that he also just doesn't have a relationship that really ties him down, but he still has some sort of external thing outside of his parents, maybe? I'm not sure.
I think it's funny when they wrote letters to each other, and her letter was just like, "Hey, here's what all of your friends are up to," and she like didn't even talk about what like she's really doing, like only very briefly. It's like he's just using her for information. I don't know, that made me laugh. But yeah, then Ewan McGregor's character kind of starts to put his life back together a little bit. He moves to London. He gets like a job doing like real estate, and like it seems like he's really starting to put his life back together. And then his friends show up at his house. And they're like, "We have this harebrained scheme." And like, well, they're also like all of his friends are like very sort of distinct. We have Spud, who's he's kind of like the dopey one, right?
I can't remember their names because I think that they're multiple that start with like an S.
There's Sick Boy, and Sick Boy is like the one that I'm pretty sure has like the blonde hair, and he's like the faux philosophist. Yeah.
He's the one that had the
baby. Like, and he's like got this like grand idea. There's that scene where he's like, "I got a grand idea about the universe. You get old and things suck." And Ewan McGregor's like, "That's your grand theory?" As if it's just like, that's just a fact.
I also thought that him like he was. I thought there was a joke that I thought was really funny that he just like when Ewan McGregor like earlier in the movie is trying to get off drugs, like just for like a really quick thing. The other guy just can get off him very easily just to spite him.
Right. That's what he's having that conversation with Sick Boy. And then there's Franco Begbie, and I'm pretty sure he's the one who's like he reminds me of like Joe Pesci. He's like British, Scottish Joe Pesci, where he's just like always picking fights with people that he shouldn't. So he has like this whole scenario where he's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna." There was someone that bought a suspicious amount of drugs and he needed to offload it quickly, and so they're trying to make some money. And they need like $4,000 to buy it, and they're like, "Where are we going to get another $2,000?" And then they're like, "Well, Ewan McGregor has $2,000." And it's all this like sort of thing where it's just like Ewan's friend, like they invade his life, they're making a mess, they sell his TV. And it's like another sort of interesting aspect about this is that like there's addiction, but then there's also like the community aspect of it. There's also the way the people that they surround themselves with, and it's also like, I mean, and Ewan McGregor's character is like sort of in a point where it's just like, I mean, he starts a new life over, but he also doesn't make new friends, really. So it's like it's something they sort of talk about with addiction, is that like it's not just removal, it's substitution. I've sort of what people have said. So it's like he doesn't have other friends to like talk to him about like, hey, like you really shouldn't be doing this. And so it's just like, and there's a line that I think is really exemplary about this, and I think Tommy's the one who says it, and Mark sort of reiterates it later, where he's just like, they're talking about Franco, they're talking about Begbie, and it's Tommy, I think, has a line where he's just like, yeah, I mean, he sucks, but he's my friend, so what are you gonna do? And again, it's just sort of like, I think, going back to that idea of just almost the opportunity of it, or the lack of opportunity of it, of this is all you have, this is all in your community, and you're obviously not going to engage with other people who aren't a part of that because they might feel ostracized, or they might ostracize you, and so this is your world, is those people. And and the way, continuously allowing those people to stay in your life, the way that, that might completely wreck your journey of rehabilitation. I thought that was really sort of fascinating. I think the one that sort of stands out to me is that like there's that moment where it's like they're trying to sort of stave off from being drugs for a bit, and they're so miserable. that they're in like the wonderful beauty of nature, and they're like, this sucks. They're like, this is the worst, man. Why are you doing this to us? And that's like another.
It was Thomas, their other friend that
Yeah.
dies halfway through. No?
Yeah, and he doesn't initially do hard drugs, if I remember right. He's like, oh, I can take it. You know, I gotta get a shot. He's the one that like sort of begs Ewen McGregor's character to get him a hit for the first time, and you see how that goes. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of... This movie is an incredibly tactile experience, a very sensory experience, from everything to the way it's edited. Like that entire sequence, there's the entire sequence where Ewan McGregor's having like the nightmare. All the nightmares, and there's the animatronic baby on the ceiling. Did you guys like the animatronic baby?
It scared the shit out of me.
I was just confused, honestly.
That is what my fever dreams are like, though, so I get it.
There's a baby on the ceiling in your fever dreams?
I one time scared like a girl I was dating at the time. We were like sleeping, and I like got up like halfway through, and I'm like, oh, I thought I saw a little gray alien over there, and then I like went back to bed, and she was freaked out for like the rest of the night.
Dang.
It's like the most insane like tactic ever to like oh, you know, hey, I think I like, you know how like there's like the stereotype of like, we'll put on a scary movie and so I'll like snuggle up because I'm scared, right? To just do that, but be like, I think I saw a little green alien, so can I stay here because I'm a little scared. You know, I guess we're just gonna have to like, I'm just gonna have to hang on.
All I did was I like got up from my bed. I got up from my bed. I'm like, oh, I thought I saw a gray alien. I go back to sleep, and it freaked her out because she thought somebody was in the room with us.
No, what did you guys think of that part where the animatronic baby rotated its head all the way around and it had that face?
That's what freaked me out. That's what freaked me out. I can't remember what it looked. I need to look at what it looked like again.
It looked like a garbage pail kid.
Oh my god! It looks like it was on more drugs than Ewan. The mark.
Yeah, that whole scene, and then like there's probably the scene that like got me the most, other than the toilet scene. Well, there's like fantasy sequence almost, because there's like that scene where he drops the suppositories in the toilet and he like dives in, and I realized that I had kind of seen like that scene of him crawling out of like the toilet from like the fantasy sequence. I was like, oh, I have seen this before, because that's an image that gets referenced a lot, or a picture that gets like referenced a lot in sort of just compilations of like things. But the one that got me was the one when shall we say Spud spoiled the sheets. That was the one that was like, oh,
it was on the hand, and then like the next scene, it's like they're all eating like a big meal at the table, and then it's like they splat and they fight over. Like the mom comes over, like, oh, I'll clean it, and then it's like no, and they splat it all over. I don't know how he got out of there alive.
Yeah,
yeah, that was gross.
This movie's so just visceral. It's an incredibly visceral movie from start to finish. And then so they do a drug deal with this big time drug deal guy. They get $16,000, and they go back to this bar, and there's like a joking conversation that Sick Boy has with Ewan and Spud, where it's just like, hey, don't run off with the money. And they're like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. And he's like, oh, that's funny, because that's totally what I would do. And then like Franco gets into another thing, and it looks like he almost kills that guy. And you see this like realization dawn on like Ewan McGregor's face, where it's like, it's almost like it's finally sort of setting in on him that like maybe he shouldn't associate with these people. And he takes the money, while everybody else is sleeping. And he invites Spudsy to kind of come along with him. And Spuds refuses. And Ewan walks off with the money, and he has this sort of final monologue, like the ones he's been having all throughout the movie, about how, like, hey, with this money, I'll finally turn myself around. I'll finally be a good person. I'll finally buy into all that stupid crap, like electric can openers and big TVs and having a kid and families and all that stuff. You know, I'm going to be a good person, just like you. I don't know. I'm curious. What did you guys think of that ending?
So throughout the movie, it's always, I feel like a big thing of the movie is that addiction. It's really hard to leave, and it's not, even whenever you're like, oh, this big thing happened, I'm never going to go back to that. It's like, he does, like, there's every time he did it, which I think he's like 3 times throughout the movie, it happened. Like, the first time when he said he was going to quit, then there was another time he said he was going to quit, and then the other guy actually did quit for a bit. And then there's the one where he was forced to go cold turkey, which I think even there's a sequel to this movie, so I think I might be right. I haven't seen it, but it's that even though he says all this stuff that he'll finally turn over a new leaf, I don't think that he really ever does, and I think that he will eventually go back to the life he's running away from. Even if it's different people, it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what the ending
that's interesting about it
leads to.
Obviously, there's the movie sequel that came out almost 20 years later on the dime, and takes place 20 years later. So, but yeah, I don't know. Andromeda, what did you think about the ending for this one?
I feel like the ending at least offers, like kind of hope for people that are also struggling with addiction, because like the beginning and end kind of like bookend together. They both have the same idea of like, choosing a better life. Like you are always given choices in life, and it's kind of like Atomic Habits if you read it, but essentially it's like you can make bad choices, but like those don't define you because you can continue to make good choices. Like, and even if you make some bad choices here and there, as long as you ultimately keep making good choices, then like your life starts to turn around. You're starting to live the kind of life that you want to. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like I kind of disagree with Dayton. I haven't seen the sequel, but I feel like he kind of does genuinely turn a new leaf. And he does say at the end of the movie that he's like, I'm not a good person. I don't really have all of the answers, but I'm choosing to get clean, and I'm choosing to move on with my life because like I want to better myself. And that is, I think, a more hopeful ending.
Yeah, I could see both, and I think I want your ending to be the correct one. To be honest, I do want your ending to be the correct one.
I guess people are gonna have to watch T2 Trainspotting and find out.
No.
Or if that's like a Pandora's box, where it's just like, do we want to find out definitively where these characters were 20 years later? So yeah, I don't know. It is interesting because like I think it toes this like very weird sort of line where McGregor's character isn't really a good person. I mean, he claims that himself, and you feel for him, and you kind of do, I guess, similarly. Like, I agree that hope, that kind of smile on your face at the end of even though he's screwed over all his friends and they start selling drugs and all that, you're just like, you know what, I hope things do work out for him. You do want that for him in a sort of way as he walks off into the sunset.
He helped out Spuds. He left money for Spuds.
He left him
again,
the money.
So
that was sweet.
I think it'd be really funny if it was Spud who actually turned over a better leaf than all of them.
So without watching the sequel, where do you think all these guys are now? Where's Crash Out Man Franco?
I think Crash Out Franco probably is. I imagine he finds Ewen McGregor. He's like, you mother. And like a big chase scene ensues before they both have to work together for another scheme.
Well, yeah. Well, going back to what Andromeda had talked about the title of this movie, I saw some comments on Reddit where someone was talking about sort of the title of this movie and how it's sort of a wonderful, like, yeah, and I thought it was a really fascinating thing because, again, we talked about, like, I wasn't really quite sure what the title of it meant. And so, yeah, so it is a term, like Andromeda mentioned, for drug usage. I think specifically like heroin usage, that sort of popped up in that area where the story primarily takes place. But then additionally, it's a sort of piece of British slang that refers to being sort of obsessed with one pointless thing, which ties back to a lot of the sort of interests that our characters have. We have, like, Sick Boy is just weirdly obsessed with Sean Connery and James Bond movies. Like, that's just his whole thing. He's just weirdly, what's the word, pretentious about that, or some of them are, like, really obsessed about, like, football, or whether that's, like, addiction. But it's also a reference to a scene from the book where, if I can find the proper... Yes, Begbie and Renton run into a homeless man in an abandoned train yard who jokingly remarks, "Are they train spotting?" which was a term used for shooting up. But he's also sort of being sarcastic because it's like it's an abandoned train station, and it's like also a train station that I think like the homeless man is like using as like a place to like use the bathroom, and so it's like sort of a thing about just like they're like he's literally stuck in this place in his life, and he's literally at a train station now with no train ever going to come because it's abandoned. And yeah, I think it's a really, like I said, it's sort of interesting, like going back to something we compared it to Breathless, where it's like Breathless is also this movie about we talked about that in film school, where it's like this French movie, and that sort of jumped out to people because it's about characters that are not traditionally moral. You know, they're addicts, and you know, I don't know what other amount of unscrupulous words you want to use. And so this is another thing that I imagine probably jumped out at a lot of young people who may or may not have been addicts, but were also similar, probably felt stuck in life. I think that probably appeals to a lot of people, the ability to feel stuck in life and feel like you are maybe surrounded by people that aren't the greatest, like being trapped in this environment. And I imagine that can similarly feel suffocating, and I imagine that for a lot of people growing up and watching them, like that could be hugely sort of personally impactful. So I don't know. I guess throwing it to you then, do you guys sort of agree and are able to sort of wrap your heads around how this movie has able to develop the cult following it has over the past 30 years?
I get it. I mean, it's kind of an experience. It's a lot of people have. It's just like a lot of people who are very social and go to like parties at least have been at least somewhere around the use of drugs, and maybe people who even go more extreme than that. So they all, especially around that time, whenever there was really nothing to do, drugs were kind of a way, like substances like that were a way to kind of beat that boredom. Because they didn't have phones, they didn't have internet, they had internet, but it wasn't very accessible, like social media, and just it was very hard to keep yourself entertained. So a lot more people would turn to drugs. Even though I know it's still pretty common now, it's a lot of young people around that time were exposed to that culture, and this movie just talks like is kind of like it feels like a firsthand account from somebody who would deal with that type of thing, even if it's exaggerated, at points. It feels very much like that is kind of a lot. It's not too far off from the headspace a lot of them are in.
I feel like this movie and its cult following does make sense, because there's not a lot of media I can think of off the top of my head besides like Euphoria, where they actually go into like substance abuse issues like this, especially like in the way that it's portrayed. Like even using Euphoria as an example, that show is kind of like famous for having these really like bright pastel lights and like things looking like romanticizing the idea of drugs. And I mean, I this might be one of the most controversial opinions on the podcast that I've had, but like I do really like this show, and I do think it portrays substance abuse accurately, especially when it comes to Rue, because like when you're in high school and you're in that age group and with your peers, you're just kind of bound to be feeling a lot of really big feelings because like, you know, you're growing up, you're like your brain is literally not grown yet and you're trying to cope with a lot of pressure that comes around being at that age. And all that being said, I think it's great to have shows like this, media like this, that actually has I don't want to word it. Like, I think it's good to have media that actually shows things that people are going through in a way that does not look good. Because I could say a lot of movies make, you know, substance abuse look cool, especially like for more casual things like smoking, vaping, and like even like drinking caffeine is considered like a stimulant. You know, that's not good for you, but it's just so casually ingrained with our society that I think, again, it's really nice to have something that gives you a more accurate look on what substance abuse looks like, because the people that take substances are not inherently evil, but there's like such a bad stigma around people that do abuse it. They kind of act like these people are, you know, inhuman or like below them a lot of the time. So to watch a story like this with people that actually feel like people is refreshing.
Yeah, I think now I'm thinking about it, just timeline wise, the '80s villainized drug users so much to where they were like monsters. I think like Lost Boys even kind of was close to making them vampires. If I'm correct, they seemed like they were the types to use drugs. But yeah, this movie definitely like Andromeda said, it humanizes them, especially for a time period where, you know, when like the arcade, like in the '80s, where it was just a huge war on drugs, which is America, but it just this movie speaks a lot to just how a lot of those people actually are, comparative to whenever a lot of times they were villainized in media.
I suppose now is as good a time as any to start transitioning into a bit of a conclusion here. Then I'll turn it over to everybody. Would you recommend this movie to people? Is there a specific demographic? You know, I imagine probably not. Oh, I don't know. I would imagine probably not movie night for the fam, but I don't know.
I'd recommend it just anybody who's like not too squeamish. They're like not squeamish, like, because if you're really squeamish, I feel like you're gonna have a miserable time watching this movie, even if it has some pretty fun scenes. A major part of the enjoyment of the movie is that you have to look at it. Like a major part of the just experience is taking in the grossness and the like you said, tactileness of just this movie. And if you're too squeamish, I don't think you'll get too much out of this movie, just because you'll be looking away.
I think that I would recommend this movie because, as I said earlier, it does a good job humanizing people with substance abuse issues, and someone that like has family members that go through this stuff. It does feel. I think it's important for people to watch media like this so they can have empathy for other people that are going through it. And then you can then be more supportive. You can understand what they're going through when they ask for help, or maybe you can kind of at least be that beacon of hope for people to, like lean them towards help. Because, I mean, as we saw in the movie, sometimes you just can't help people that don't want to be helped. But if people are struggling and they want to choose a better life and are struggling towards choosing a better life, then you can be that person for them.
I think for me, yeah, I think I would. I think you probably have to be a certain level of comfortable in discomfort in order to watch this movie. But I think as much as this movie doesn't necessarily hold up these characters as some sort of ideal to strive for, it also doesn't demonize them. And I think, to me, that's also a really important step in having sympathy for people in these situations, and also the resolve to recognize, to not romanticize how dangerous and deadly and rough and how big of a toll these things could be, to simultaneously have the sympathy for them, to make them human, to recognize their mistakes, but also to not fully commit to being like, we can't also stand back and be able to recognize it is a little ridiculous sometimes, the extremes that honestly that everybody sometimes goes through to get a fix for whatever their affliction is. But yeah. Well, I guess with that, I think that's probably going to tie up this episode. So I thank everybody for joining me, and thank you for listening along. I love you all, and good night.